Welcome back to the deep dive. We are shifting gears a bit today.
Yeah, definitely a different flavor for this one.
Right. We aren't looking at a historical event today or a scientific breakthrough or even the latest tech trend. We're actually cracking open a really specific, highly volatile hour of television history. We are looking at Breaking Bad.
Specifically, we're looking at what you could call the architecture of tension.
Oh, that is a really great way to put it, the architecture of tension.
Yeah, because we are focusing on season 4, episode 4.
Titled Bullet Points.
Exactly. And look, if you're a fan of the show, just hearing that title probably triggers a very specific image in your mind.
A notebook.
Yep.
A handwritten list of notes.
It definitely should.
Yeah.
But before we get to the notebook itself, we really need to set the stage for you. This hour of television originally aired on August 7, 2011.
Okay.
It's the 37th installment of the series overall.
Uh-huh.
And the mission for our deep dive today, the whole point of this, is to really understand how this specific hour functions as a bridge.
A bridge between what, exactly?
Well, between the sort of simmering passive-aggressive tension of the early season and the absolute, just explosive chaos that comes later.
Right, because on the surface, Bullet Points looks like a setup episode.
It does. It's moving chess pieces around the board.
Yeah, but when you actually dig into the production notes, the interviews with creator Vince Gilligan and the director Michelle MacLaren, plus all the technical breakdowns we have in our source material.
You realize this episode is actually fundamentally about the collapse of professionalism.
Professionalism, yes. And we have a lot of ground to cover to show you how that happens. We've got the Cold War with the cartel.
We have some genuinely insane practical effects involving dry ice.
Oh, man, the dry ice. And, of course, the psychological unraveling of Walter White.
Not to mention a karaoke video that might just be the darkest joke in the entire history of the series.
Truly the darkest. But I want to start with the title itself, Bullet Points. It feels like a double entendre right out of the gate, doesn't it?
Oh, it is explicitly a duality. You have the metaphorical bullet points, right?
The list in Gale Boetticher's lab notes.
Exactly. The notes that threaten to completely destroy Walt, and you also have the literal bullets.
The violence.
The sheer violence, and that is exactly where the episode begins.
The cold open. We're just thrown right into a high-stakes situation with Mike Ehrmantraut. And the setting here is, well, it's a choice.
Yeah.
He is hiding inside a refrigerator truck.
A Los Pollos Hermanos truck, specifically. And to really understand the why here, we have to pull back for a second and look at the macro politics of the show's universe at this specific moment in time.
Because this isn't just some random highway hijacking.
No, not at all. This is geopolitical. It's the cartel striking back.
Right.
It's a direct response to the season 3 finale, Full Measure. Remember, Mike killed several cartel henchmen who had basically taken over a chemical supply warehouse.
He acted preemptively.
Exactly. He followed Gus Fring's overarching philosophy, which is essentially to strike first.
But actions have consequences.
Always. The cartel isn't going to just storm Gus's house yet. That's too direct. Instead, they're squeezing his supply lines.
Hitting the logistics.
Right. So Mike is in the back of this truck, literally chilling, just waiting for the attack that he absolutely knows is coming.
And it definitely comes. The truck gets forced off the road. And this is where I want to just pause and really talk about the filmmaking.
It's incredible.
Because this sequence is terrifying for you as the viewer. You're trapped inside this dark metal box with Mike. You hear the tires screeching, the truck is tipping over, and then the machine gun fire.
The sound design is doing a ton of heavy lifting there, absolutely. But the visual effects team is doing even more.
We have to talk about the squibs.
Yes.
Because this was one of the craziest statistics in the research packet. For the listener who might not be familiar, a squib is basically a small explosive charge used in filming to simulate a bullet impact, right?
Correct. It's essentially a tiny packet of fake blood or dust and an explosive detonator that's wired back to a control board. In a typical action movie scene, a director might set up 20, maybe 30 of these to simulate a really heavy shootout.
Okay, so keeping that in mind, how many did they use for this specific truck scene?
380?
380 explosive charges.
It is a staggering number for television.
That's absurd.
They had 150 wired onto each side of the truck and then another 80 on the rear doors alone.
Just think about the wiring nightmare that entails for the crew.
Oh, it's miles of cable. You have miles of cable running from the truck to a central control board.
And the pressure on the crew must have been immense. Because if a squib misfires, or if the timing of the sequence is off, You can't just say, oh, let's reset and try again.
No, you absolutely cannot. You'd have to physically patch the holes in the metal, repaint the entire truck, and then painstakingly rewire all the explosives.
So it effectively has to be done in one take.
Essentially, yes. It was a one-shot deal for the main impacts. And they went even further with the realism to sell it. They actually used 2 completely different sets of back doors.
Wait, why 2 sets of doors?
It comes down to perspective. They had one set of doors rigged specifically for the exterior shots.
Where you see the bullets punching into the metal from the outside.
All right. Then they cut the cameras, physically swapped those doors out for a second set, and that second set was rigged for the interior shots. To show the bullets shredding through the metal to the inside, right where Mike is hiding.
So when you're watching it and you see Mike flinching as the light literally punches through the metal in the dark.
Those are real, controlled explosions happening just feet away from the actor.
That adds visceral texture that CGI simply cannot replicate. You really feel the violence of it.
You do.
But speaking of visceral, let's talk about the temperature in that scene.
The cold.
Because the other thing that really sells this scene is the cold.
Mm.
You see Mike's breath. You see him shivering. It feels like it's 10 degrees below zero inside that box.
Which is actually a massive problem for the production because they filmed the show in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And usually they are filming in just scorching desert heat.
So how did they pull that off? Did they actually refrigerate the interior of the truck?
They considered it, but that would be way too expensive and honestly pretty dangerous for the crew to work in all day.
So what did they do?
Well, Vince Gilligan had a very specific visual requirement. He wanted the audience to see the breath condensation.
He didn't want to fake it in post-production with CGI.
No, because smoke simulation back in 2011 was still a bit spotty for something that needs to look as subtle and natural as human breath.
So they went practical.
Extremely practical, and honestly, a little bit unhinged.
I love this part.
The special effects crew custom built this tiny plastic device. Just imagine a really small plastic box with several little holes drilled into it.
Okay.
And they filled this box with actual dry ice.
I see where this is going, and I don't like it.
It gets worse. Jonathan Banks, the actor playing Mike, had to physically hold this plastic device inside his mouth.
Inside his mouth?
While acting.
While acting out the scene?
That is insane. He's sitting there in the dark, waiting to essentially kill 2 men, with a box of frozen carbon dioxide tucked into his cheek.
Wow.
And when he exhaled, the warm air from his lungs passed over the dry ice, creating this perfect, totally natural-looking condensation cloud.
That sounds incredibly uncomfortable. I mean,
Right.
Dry ice burns if it directly touches your skin.
It absolutely does. And the source notes mention they actually had some teething problems with the device early on.
What happened?
Well, the first time they tested the mixture of the ice and the airflow, it was way too thick. It didn't look like he was breathing in the cold. It looked like Mike was chain-smoking a massive cigar inside the truck.
Which, to be fair, would be very on brand for a noir character like Mike.
Sure.
But probably not great for a stealth mission where you're hiding from cartel hitmen.
Exactly. So they had to dial the mixture back quite a bit. But here is a fascinating piece of trivia about this whole effect.
Yeah.
Vince Gilligan didn't invent this dry ice trick. He actually stole it.
From who?
Frank Capra,
The director.
the legendary director of It's a Wonderful Life.
No way.
Yeah, Gilligan had read Capra's autobiography years ago. And Capra used the exact same trick back in the 1940s to simulate winter scenes that had to be filmed on a warm soundstage in Hollywood.
That is incredible.
Gilligan remembered reading that and just thought, well, if it worked for Capra, it works for us.
It really is amazing how low-tech solutions in filmmaking often age so much better than the high-tech digital ones.
It's tactile, you can feel it, and it instantly sets up the baseline competence of Mike's character.
Right.
He is suffering, he is freezing, he is under heavy machine gun fire, and yet the second those doors open...
He doesn't hesitate for a fraction of a second. He drops both of the attackers.
But he doesn't walk away completely clean, either.
No, he takes a grazing shot right to the ear.
And we really have to give a shout out to the makeup team here, specifically K&B EFX Group.
Greg Nicotero's team.
Right. They made a mold of Jonathan Banks' actual ear to create a custom prosthetic application that looked absolutely gruesome.
Just a chunk of cartilage hanging off.
Yeah, it establishes right at the top of the hour that the Cold War is heating up fast. Mike is the absolute most capable soldier Gus has, and even he is taking damage now.
Which brings us perfectly to the other side of the episode. what we might call the amateurs.
Yes.
Because we cut directly from this gritty, frozen, violent truck sequence to a warm, brightly lit domestic dinner party.
The contrast is completely jarring, and that is entirely intentional by the director.
We go from high-caliber bullets to bacon-wrapped appetizers. Walt and Skyler are having dinner at Hank and Marie Schrader's house.
And this is exactly where the title Bullet Points shifts its meaning.
Right, because Walt and Skyler are there for a very specific mission. They are there to sell a lie.
They desperately need to explain to Hank and Marie how they can suddenly afford to buy an entire car wash business and how they've been paying for Hank's expensive physical therapy bills.
And the lie they settled on, out of all the possible excuses, is gambling.
It is such a fascinating choice of lie when you think about it.
We've talked about this before on the show. Walt's lies are rarely just total fabrications made out of whole cloth.
No, there are almost always distortions of his own massive ego.
Exactly. He tells Hank and Marie that he developed a mathematically foolproof system for counting cards in blackjack.
He frames himself as this unappreciated mathematical genius who outsmarted the giant casinos.
It feeds his narcissism perfectly. He gets to sit at the dinner table and brag about his sheer intellect, all while successfully hiding his actual criminality.
But the real tension in this sequence isn't actually about whether the gambling story works.
No, Hank buys that hook, line, and sinker. He's almost impressed.
The real tension comes when Walt excuses himself from the table.
The classic bathroom break. The oldest spy movie trope in the book.
But of course, he doesn't go to the bathroom.
No. He sneaks into Hank's bedroom. Because he knows Hank, who's recovering in bed most days, has the active police case file on Gale Boetticher sitting right in his room.
Gale, the cartel chemist that Jesse murdered at the end of the previous season.
Right. Walt is looking for intel. He desperately wants to know exactly how much the DEA knows about the operation.
So he finds the file, he opens it up, and we, the audience, see the gruesome photos of the crime scene. We see Gale's body.
And then, buried in the file, he finds the notebook. The lab notes.
This is a total telltale heart moment for Walt.
Oh, absolutely.
He's flipping through Gale's handwritten notes, and he suddenly sees his own process staring back at him.
He sees the proprietary blue meth formula painstakingly written down in Gale's handwriting.
It's a permanent record of his own genius, which has been stolen from him.
But it's also a literal death warrant if Hank connects the dots.
Which leads directly into the scene that I genuinely think defines the entire first half of Season 4.
The WW scene.
It's a masterclass in both editing and acting.
So Hank rolls into the bedroom in his wheelchair. He catches Walt red-handed looking at the notebook.
Now, a lesser television show would have Hank figure it out right there and draw his gun.
Right. Big dramatic standoff.
But Breaking Bad always plays the long game. Hank doesn't suspect Walt at all. In fact, he invites Walt into the investigation.
Which is just excruciating to watch.
Yeah.
Hank is treating Walt like an unpaid consultant, casually asking him about the complex chemistry in the notes.
And then Hank flips to the dedication page.
Right. To WW, my star, my perfect silence.
It's a quote from the poet Walt Whitman, but Hank makes the joke.
He looks right at Walt. He starts listing the possible suspects out loud. Woodrow Wilson, Willy Wonka.
And then he pauses.
He looks Walt dead in the eye and says, Walter White.
I really want to break down the production of this specific reaction shot, because in the source notes, Vince Gilligan was incredibly obsessive about this one moment.
He utilized a very specific montage technique here, right?
Yes. He worked very closely with the editor, Kelly Dixon.
Right, we get these rapid-fire, almost jagged cuts between the notebook pages and Walt's face.
Gilligan's explicit direction to Dixon was to convey a state of hyperpanic. He wanted the audience to physically feel Walt's heart just hammering against his ribs.
But, and this is the crucial part of the performance, Walt's faith had to remain completely impassive to Hank.
It's a split reality. Internally, Walt is screaming in terror. Externally, he's just a mild-mannered, slightly confused chemistry teacher.
The source material mentions that Bryan Cranston actually struggled to find this specific balance initially.
Yeah, they actually had to reshoot the reaction shot.
Really?
Because the first time they did it, he looked a little too guilty. Hank would have noticed.
Right.
The second time, he looked too calm. So they had to find that exact micro-expression where the pure fear is just hiding behind the eyes, but nowhere else on the face.
And the way Walt eventually gets out of it, it's just brilliant improvisation on the character's part. He actually admits it.
You got me.
He throws his hands up in mock surrender. You got me. It's the absolute best way to diffuse an uncomfortable suspicion. You turn it into a joke.
And then, seamlessly, he pivots to the actual truth. He explains the Walt Whitman connection to Hank.
He uses his academic knowledge as a shield. He basically lectures Hank on 19th century poetry.
And because Hank has always seen Walt as this harmless nerd, he just accepts the explanation without a second thought.
The tension finally breaks.
But the narrative damage is done. Walt now knows for a fact that the police have a literal roadmap to his entire operation sitting in a binder.
And speaking of Gale Boetticher, the ghost of Gale is just all over this episode.
Haunting every scene.
We have the notebook, obviously, but then we have the video.
The infamous karaoke video.
I don't think I have ever laughed and cringed so hard at the exact same time.
It's incredibly jarring.
Hank pops in a DVD that the police found at Gale's apartment, and it's Gale standing in front of a green screen singing Peter Schilling's Major Tom.
With full Thai subtitles running across the bottom.
It is just so wildly specific. Why did the writers do this?
Well, according to the interviews with Vince Gilligan, he really wanted to emphasize the sheer tragedy of Gale's death.
Right, because Gale wasn't a hardened cartel hitman.
No, he was this quirky, libertarian nerd who loved making perfect coffee and reading poetry. Gilligan specifically chose the song Major Tom because he felt it was, in his exact words, cheesy and earnest.
Which perfectly encapsulates Gale.
Exactly. And the production team just went all out on this single 30-second clip.
They did. They brought back the actor David Costabile just to film this one bizarre video.
And do you know what the background is behind him? The cheesy space footage.
It looks like a cheap Windows screensaver.
It's actually not. That is real stock footage from a very short-lived 1970s sci-fi show called Quark.
Quark. I've never even heard of that.
Most people haven't. But it was a show that Gilligan absolutely loved when he was a kid. He somehow tracked down the footage and thought it was the perfect aesthetic for Gale's spacey, weird vibe.
That's hilarious. And what are the subtitles?
Those are actual, accurate Thai translations. The show's music supervisor hired a professional translator to ensure they were grammatically correct, just so it looked like a legitimate, cheap souvenir DVD from a vacation to Thailand.
They care so much about the details. But there is a funny behind-the-scenes controversy about this karaoke scene, right? Something to do with the show Flight of the Conchords.
Yes. Okay, so David Costabile, the actor who plays Gale, also had a recurring role on the HBO comedy series Flight of the Conchords.
Right.
And in that show, there is a running joke about his character making, you guessed it, weird karaoke videos.
So people immediately assumed Breaking Bad was just ripping off the joke from Flight of the Conchords.
Or at least paying direct homage to it. But Vince Gilligan swears up and down it was a total, complete accident.
Really?
He claims he wrote the scene, they filmed it, and only then did someone show him the Flight of the Conchords clip.
Oh, man.
He apparently said, "Oh shit," and was genuinely worried that critics would think he stole the bit.
But they kept it in anyway.
They did because they felt it just fit Gale's character way too perfectly to cut it out over a coincidence.
Well, I'm very glad they kept it. But when you watch it in the context of the episode, it's not actually funny. Well, it is funny, but it's incredibly morbid.
It's deeply macabre.
You have Walt and Hank sitting there drinking beers, watching this sweet, nerdy man singing about being lost in space.
A man who is dead solely because of the two men watching the video.
Exactly. Hank is actively hunting his killer, and Walt is the literal reason the hit was ordered in the first place.
It creates this intense cognitive dissonance for you as the viewer. It makes you feel almost guilty for laughing at the cheesy green screen.
It humanizes the collateral damage of Walt's empire, which I think segues us perfectly to the other person who is suffering the most from that exact same collateral damage.
Jesse Pinkman.
Right. If Walt is handling his stress by carefully manicuring his lies and his image, Jesse is handling it by just totally destroying his environment.
We go straight from the pristine, beige, upper-middle-class world of the Schrader house directly into Jesse's house.
And it has become a literal circle of hell.
It's a crack house. There is just no other way to accurately describe what he's turned his home into.
There's graffiti all over the expensive walls, random strangers sleeping on the hardwood floors, and this constant, heavy pounding music.
And Jesse is sitting right in the middle of it all. But he isn't partying.
No. He is completely dissociating.
He's trying to drown out his own internal trauma with as much external chaos as he can possibly generate.
There is a really telling moment where Walt comes over to visit. He walks in and is just visibly horrified by the filth and the squalor.
And Jesse just stares at him blankly.
Walt immediately brings up the shell casing. He asked Jesse if he remembered to pick up the shell casing after he shot Gale in the apartment.
Which is a massive critical loose end for a murder investigation.
And Jesse just casually admits that he didn't.
And worse, he clearly doesn't care. That is the truly scary part of this sequence. Jesse has reached a point of absolute nihilism.
He assumes he's either going to be murdered by the cartel or go to prison for life, and he has just accepted it.
Before we move on from the house, we need to talk about the guests at this endless party. Specifically, a character named Sketchy.
Oh, Sketchy. The incredibly fast-talking guy tweaking in the background.
Yeah, this is such a great casting story from the production notes.
The actor is Jeremy Howard.
Yes. And it turns out Bryan Cranston actually knew him already because Cranston had directed him years earlier in an episode of Malcolm in the Middle.
It's always the Hollywood network in action.
But here is the interesting thing. Sketchy was originally only supposed to be in the previous episode, Open House.
Okay.
But Vince Gilligan loved Jeremy Howard's performance so much, he had this perfect, frantic, unpredictable meth head energy that they quickly rewrote the script to include him in bullet points too.
And there's a specific moment with him that was a total accident, right? A mistake that actually made the final cut.
Yes. There is a wide shot where Sketchy is rambling and he walks off screen, and suddenly you hear this massive shattering crash of glass bottles.
I remember that vividly. It sounds like he just walked face first into a brick wall.
Well, he effectively did. That was not in the script at all. Jeremy Howard accidentally tripped and knocked over a huge pile of prop beer bottles while he was exiting the scene.
But they didn't yell cut.
No, the crew started cracking up, but they kept rolling. It just fit the chaotic, sloppy, dangerous vibe of the house so perfectly that Gilligan said, yeah, we're keeping that in.
It adds so much authentic texture to the scene.
It does. But the party eventually takes a much darker turn, the head shaving scene.
That is a genuinely hard watch. Jesse just starts buzzing people's heads in the middle of the living room.
It starts off somewhat playful, maybe, like a weird party game. But then it quickly becomes almost ritualistic.
And eventually he turns the clippers on himself. He shaves his own head completely bald.
Which is a huge physical change.
Why does he do that? Was that in the original script?
No, actually, from a production standpoint, this was entirely Aaron Paul's idea.
The actor pitched it.
He did. He went to the writers and pitched it. He strongly felt that Jesse needed a stark physical transformation to visually match his intense internal trauma.
He wanted to shed the oversized clothes the kid look.
Exactly. He wanted the character to look harder, uglier, more stripped down.
Well, it definitely works.
Right.
He looks practically skeletal for the rest of the season. But apparently, this creative choice was an absolute nightmare for the casting director.
Oh, absolutely. Just think about the logistics of it. You are hiring background extras for a standard party scene.
Right, which usually just means standing in the background, holding a red Solo cup, and pretending to talk.
Suddenly, the director walks in and says, okay, who here is willing to let the lead actor actually shave your head completely bald on camera today?
I imagine the pool of eager volunteers shrank very rapidly.
Drastically. The production notes say they had a ton of people sign up for the gig and then bail at the absolute last minute when they realized the haircutting was going to be real.
They didn't want to use bald caps.
Bald caps never look quite right under harsh lighting. So they had this mad scramble on set to find extras who were actually willing to lose all their hair just for a standard day rate.
I mean, it pays off. It creates a scene that feels very cult-like. They're all physically stripping away their identities in this house.
But amidst all this philosophical chaos, the reality of the drug business comes right back to haunt Jesse.
He leads a duffel bag full of money. I think it's like $70,000 just lying wide open on the floor.
And it gets stolen, obviously, by one of the partygoers.
And this brings White back into the fold.
And we see the contrast again, the competence gap.
Right, because Jesse doesn't even care that the money is gone. He's just sitting there, completely zoned out, playing a light gun video game, just shooting at the screen.
But Mike walks in, silently assesses the room, spots the thief almost instantly, and recovers the bag of cash without even raising his pulse.
It's incredibly efficient.
But Mike sees something else while he's there, something Gus Fring absolutely needs to know.
That Jesse is a massive liability.
He is spiraling totally out of control.
Which leads us directly to the climax of the episode. Walt is running around trying to do damage control. He's talking to Saul Goodman. He's pacing around, practically ranting to the camera about professionalism.
And that really is the key thematic word of the entire episode, professionalism.
Walt rants that their entire operation is falling apart specifically because of a lack of professionalism.
Yeah.
And he entirely blames Jesse for it.
But let's actually look at the scoreboard for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Who is the one who almost got the entire operation busted because he arrogant kept a murder victim's notebook in his personal bedroom?
Walt.
Who is the one drunkenly improvising insane lies about illegal gambling at a dinner party with a DEA agent?
Yeah.
And who is the one currently accepting his grim fate with total, unwavering stoicism?
Jesse.
Exactly. Because when Mike finally comes to the house to pick Jesse up,
That car ride is chilling.
it is so quiet.
Mike is driving him straight out into the desolate desert. It looks exactly like a hit.
It has all the hallmarks of an execution run.
And Mike looks over and asks him, "You want to know where we're going?"
And Jesse just stares straight ahead and says, nope. That one word, nope. It breaks my heart every single time I watch it.
Because it's the sound of a man who has already died on the inside. He isn't afraid of physical death anymore because he is already living in a waking nightmare.
So the episode ends right there on that brutal cliffhanger. Jesse is in the car, his fate totally unknown. Walt is back home in a state of absolute panic.
It perfectly sets the table for everything that follows in the season.
Now, before we wrap up today's deep dive, I want to spend a few minutes looking at how this episode was actually received when it aired.
Because looking back now, with the benefit of hindsight, we clearly see it as a crucial turning point. But at the
It
time...
was generally well received by critics, but definitely with some caveats.
Yeah, the critics immediately recognized it as a bridge episode. IGN gave it an 8 out of 10, explicitly calling it a solid building block.
TV Fanatic loved it, giving it a 4.9 out of 5, calling it phenomenal. The AV Club gave it an A-. But Alan Sepinwall, who is basically the dean of television critics, he had a very specific note about the overall structure.
What did he say?
He called it very oddly structured, but never uninteresting.
And honestly, he's completely right. Look at how we just laid it out.
Yeah.
You have this intense action movie opening with the truck. Then you transition into this awkward sitcom dinner party in the middle, and then it ends like a psychological horror movie with Jesse in the crack house.
It's massive tonal whiplash for the viewer.
But I'd argue that the whiplash is the entire point, isn't it?
Yeah.
Walt's life is becoming completely unmanageable. His carefully separated compartments are all leaking into each other.
I completely agree with that assessment, but it is interesting when The Ringer did a massive piece ranking all 62 episodes of Breaking Bad back in 2019. Bullet points ended up near the very bottom of the list.
Really? Where exactly did it land?
Number 59.
59 out of 62. That seems incredibly harsh.
It does, but it's the classic curse of the setup episode. Well, when fans look back and remember Breaking Bad, they remember the massive set pieces. They remember the train heist, they remember the exploding nursing home, the giant magnets.
The huge climaxes.
Exactly. You don't necessarily remember the quiet episode where Walt reads a notebook in a bedroom and Jesse shaves a random guy's head at a party.
But the truth is, without this specific episode doing the heavy lifting, those later explosions don't carry any narrative weight.
Nope.
They don't happen at all.
Exactly. This episode is the mortar that holds all those giant, memorable bricks together.
So as we close out, what is the big takeaway here? If the listener takes just one thing away from bullet points, what should it be?
For me, it's really about the total illusion of control.
The illusion.
Yeah. Everyone in this hour thinks they can somehow control or mitigate the fallout of their violent actions. Walt thinks he can just lie his way out of suspicion. Mike thinks he can shoot his way out of a cartel war. Jesse thinks he can chemically numb his way out of his guilt.
But the bullet points, the cold, hard facts of their reality are constantly closing in.
Exactly. You simply can't hide forever inside a dark refrigerator truck. Eventually, somebody is going to open those doors.
And I'll leave you with this final thought on that theme of professionalism we discussed.
Mm-hmm.
Walt constantly claims he is the professional one. He wears the neat button-down shirts. He uses the big academic words. He looks the part.
Yeah.
But in this episode, he is the one driven entirely by panic, ego, and fear.
While Jesse, the junkie, the high school dropout, he's the one who eventually faces the barrel of the gun without even flinching.
So I'll ask you to mull over this. In this brutal criminal underworld, who's actually better suited for long-term survival, the man who desperately clings to his life and his lies, or the man who has already completely let it go?
That is the exact question that the rest of Season 4 sets out to answer.
Indeed it is. Do us a favor. If you have the time, go back and rewatch that cold open.
Look really closely for the breath.
Yes. Think about the chunk of dry ice sitting right in Jonathan Bake's mouth while he's aiming that gun. Take a moment to really appreciate the physical suffering that went into making your entertainment.
It is definitely worth a rewatch with that in mind.
Thanks for diving deep with us today.
Until next time.
See you then.